Well, we want to welcome everybody out to the July WASDE report. I actually got the month right. I'm usually a month behind, but it is July. And we have, I wish I would say we were in this big volatility period in the marketplace where we've had opportunities from a farmer's standpoint to sell, but that has not been the case over the last 30 days. It seems like we've been hit with one thing after the other, sending this market down, specifically in corn and beans. Thinking back to where we were at 20 days ago prior to that June 28th report, we didn't think things were good then. Boy, did we wish we could warp back 2 weeks ago and get some of those prices that we saw. So we're joined today with Matt from Bloomberg. Matt, it sounds like you're not coming to us from the United States. Tell us a little bit about where you're at and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure, Brooks. Thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me. In place of sterling, I am coming to you from London in the United Kingdom. I've been at Bloomberg for the last 14 years, where I first met Sterling several years ago.
Well, we've sent Sterling across the pond this week. So without giving away his location, he's somewhere in Europe. And if you follow his Facebook page, you can follow him step by step, his journey over there. So we're glad to have you, Matt, and we'll see what this thing brings. I guess to set the tone, like I said, super bearish sentiment in the market. Those acres on corn up from where we thought they might be. Hurricane comes through. About half the corn belt gets solid rains. The eastern half, the southern belt, solid rains. Ratings look pretty strong for this time of the year. When we look on the side of optimism, a couple things out there. We see spec fund positions extremely short. Historically, when we've seen these specs this short, there's some glimmer of hope just from a trade perspective that maybe there's some profit taking. The other small glimmer of hope is we're a little later in the U.S. crop cycle than we were last year or the previous year. In other words, that volatility period to this crop in the field is a little later. I drove through Indiana yesterday. I didn't see much corn that was pollinated. I know there's a fair amount that is, but a lot of corn that's not in the central part of the state. Seeing the same thing in Illinois, where we're just a little bit behind where we were at last year. If I look for any other optimism in this market, basis levels. So when commercial elevators actually pay that farmer, Matt, that basis is really starting to jump, meaning that maybe the stocks aren't there or the farmer's a little bit stubborn with selling. But the sands of the hourglass are running out pretty fast for this old crop. I guess to put you on the hot seat right off the bat, can you add any more optimism to that small short list that I just threw out there?
Not a whole lot. I thought I'd actually show you some of the crop yield data which we're getting in, which maybe can offer no glimmer of hope whatsoever, in fact. But I'm gonna do it anyway, actually, so you get a little bit more of a sense for where our friends at Planalytics believe the market is at in terms of expected yields for this crop. Just going to share, just kick off and share this screen.
While you're doing that, Jeff from Planalytics joined us in our monthly marketing call 2 months ago. We talked about maybe a strong La Nina in that western corn belt causing some high temperatures, maybe below normal for precip, but we really haven't seen that to the extent maybe we thought we were going to. So you probably got some good information here for us.
Yeah, exactly. And actually Jeff's responsible for everything you see here. So just looking at, in this case, corn yields, if we're looking at trend yield above, just looking at ground or land above trend yield of 181, you'll see they're doing pretty well right across the corn belt here, even down south into places like Arkansas and even into Tennessee as well. So things look pretty good. Obviously, the hurricane bringing in some pretty beneficial rain over the last couple of days. I would imagine, to 30U, that is going to do no harm to crop progress, but maybe quite a lot of harm to where prices are at for, well, certainly for coming into new crop. So.
Yeah, we had that. We had a little optimism last Friday. We had a decent day. We thought maybe that report had triggered some lows right before the 4th. And then Friday, we just got hammered and really haven't been able to recover. We took kind of a breath yesterday, and then pre-report right now looks like we're down about 6. We've got Jason Flanders is on the has just texted in or messaged in basis levels, and that it looks like 60 to 85 under. I just caught a glimpse of it, Jason. down here in the Ohio River Valley, looking anywhere from 25 to 30 over. And then I'm seeing some reports a little bit southeast, Jason, out in the Western Corn Belt, where basis levels are substantially higher. And I think that may be just an effort to really get that corn moving out of the farmers' bins with these low futures levels.
Brooks, which states were you just looking at? Were you looking at Ohio? I can show you Ohio here. Yeah, so crikey, look at that. This is aggregate basis for Ohio. Obviously, looking on corn, you'll see here it's about 3,900 at the moment. Previous years, that obviously looks very, very much depressed.
Yeah, we built these stocks up so much that we talked about the undertones from this year versus last year. We knew that any type of crop problem would be muted, but right now we haven't had any crop problem. And you couple that with the carryout numbers that we got this year versus last, and you can see how this market reacts. It certainly looks like we might be headed up a little bit on basis just to pry that out, but certainly nothing like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, exactly right. It's stepping up a little bit in Illinois, as you see here, but again, it's so depressed versus previous years. It's hardly worth mentioning, but yeah, there you see it.
In the Western Corn Belt, things may be a little bit better into the ethanol market. That's one thing that we've seen. We look at ethanol, we look at export, we look at rail, we look at the feedlot direct numbers. So there's a distinct difference in basis levels based on the marketplace. And it seems like this time of the year, one of those marketplaces typically dominates. Looks like you pulled up. What have you pulled up there?
Here we're looking at Nebraska here, so it's obviously going my limited geography of the US, but heading into a sterling state, I believe. So looking at Nebraska here, and as you see, like obviously somewhat higher.
I know we've got some Nebraskans on the call this morning. I've heard basis levels at local ethanol plants out there as high as 60 over. That chart wouldn't indicate it, but that's probably a melding of several different cash prices.
Yeah, so take this with a pinch of salt, because this is an aggregate of a couple of hundred facilities across the state, so it's not going to capture some of those bigger spikes.
So Matt, we're 5 minutes away from release, and Sterling generally kind of puts us up a kind of a scoreboard of the live release. We can do that verbally if you don't have that set up.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
This report, we get into this report. Let's talk about what we're going to look at first off. This is a little different than what we saw in the January 28th report. We're kind of back to the norm here. Typically, we don't see, and we've had a lot of information thrown at us in the last couple of weeks. Don't see big changes from those June 28th numbers. We kind of double dip there. What are we looking at in your eyes in this report that could change this market?
Yeah, I guess with increased acreage, which came out from the last report, I believe you're likely to see, particularly on corn, yields potentially moving down slightly. They're posted at 181. You'll see the survey numbers coming in fractionally below that, but obviously with increased acreage, that carryouts should be relatively strong. Surveys coming out at 2288. It's again slightly above where we saw it in the prior month. Looking down into soybeans, surveys saying just under 52 on yields. Again, that's pretty much in line with where we were a month ago. So no huge moves there. Slight move down on production as well. So nothing huge. But as you can see from some of the prices on the right hand side, corn is going into this report like substantially down, like 7 cents down on the day already. It's almost hitting that 3 handle. That, as I say, is just looking at December 24. Soybeans again down on the day. If you look at it versus the last month, again it's had a difficult time. And here we're again looking into Kansas as well, onto Kansas wheat contract. Again, it's not all good news. I can say that for sure.
Yeah, so we painted a pretty dismal picture. I think, the yields, if you went back 3 months ago, Matt, we would think there's no way we'll be at 181. There's no way we'll be at 52. And to kind of magnify that same thought from a claim standpoint as a company, when we look at prevent, plant, and replant, we are substantially higher in number of claims this year versus last year. One thing that's interesting about those claims is Last year we had a fair amount of those in the Delta in Texas. Those numbers were considerably lower than last year. As we move up into our regions like the Great Lakes and the upper Midwest and the Midwest, we saw those claims climb. So to see these yields maintain with the claim count that we see higher, that's kind of a unique thing. But again, the weather's been pretty conducive for replants. And who knows, we may actually get that 181 and 52. And I think those would be records for the United States. We are just a couple minutes away.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close, right? So this is what you want to be looking at. This is the latest numbers. These actuals will get posted as soon as the report comes out, as long as nothing dramatic goes wrong. You've got 30 seconds coming into the report. You're going to see price movements here. This is all going to be live, so hopefully you get a glimpse for what the market's going to do on these releases there.
We need some background music here, maybe a final countdown, I think, in the background. Although, unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to get any mind-blowing news. Everybody's hungry for the news, and it just doesn't look like there's going to be much out there. The market may react, but I don't think the news is going to change that much.
There we go. Yield stuck at 181 on corn. Again, 52, no change on yield. Slightly stronger production on corn. Gonna let you take over from here. But yeah, here you see the numbers just posted out just now.
You know, we typically take a look at wheat for what it's worth, and I can't quite see your screen on there.
51.8 on yield. You'll see the exports slightly up at 825, and total production at just over, well, just here.
And it looks like the market for the most part is yawned. I see corn there. September corn looks like it's down 6. And beans hovering there around 7 and change lower. So really, one of those reports that not much change from beginning to end when it comes to price. A lot of expectations met. Any stocks numbers out there? See any stocks numbers that we might want to highlight, Matt?
Give me a bit on that, but give me a bit more on that. What exactly do you want to see?
Let's look at U.S. corn stocks, U.S. bean stocks. Again, I don't think there's going to be.
Of course. Just looking here. Well, you saw. Hang on, sorry. Yeah, you saw production here, right? So stocks in at 435 on soybeans. Stocks in at, where are we? 2097 on corn, and then wheat's slightly higher as well, like a whole chunk higher, actually, 856 on wheat as well.
That wheat is a significant change. I just actually had a text that came through that said check out wheat stocks. So wheat, had been on the skids now for about a week, and it showed some signs of optimism. About the time you'd see it down 10, the next day it would be up 10, but it kind of solidifies its price point right now. Can you give us an update on December corn, November beans?
Yeah, because I think I've got a problem with my pricing feed right now, so this may not be entirely accurate. Actually, it looks like it's got stuck, so I'm gonna have to.
But we can see I think you're still ticking on the screen there, so we can kind of get an idea.
Yeah, but it's not. This is I've just noticed I've got a problem, so I'm a couple of minutes behind. I'm behind the release, so don't take this too accurately right now. Let's see what I can do to change that. It was all set up, but there we see.
Matt, while you're doing that, give us a little idea of what you do for Bloomberg specifically.
Yeah, so I sit within our commodity business. So I set plans for where we're going to invest, what we're going to build for our clients right across the commodity space, focusing obviously pretty heavily across oil, across energy, so things like gas and power, very much a global view. But yeah, so I've been around at Bloomberg for the last 14 years and spent a whole lot of time with our clients over in Geneva, which for those people on the call is a huge hub for commodities, particularly for ags in Europe, with all the major ABCD groups all got their large bases in and around, I should say, Geneva. So that's what I do at Bloomberg, or I used to at Bloomberg. I now pretty much sit within a product management role now. So
Well, if you ever need to come to the United States, you got a group of attendees here that would probably welcome to give you a tour of their backyards and the farms that they farm and work for.
Well, I would welcome the chance. I've only ever been on the East Coast, West Coast, and I just went down to Texas a couple of months ago, but I've never quite managed to get to the Midwest.
Yeah.
But I heard great things about the area. So
Well, I know you're on a little bit of a delay, and I just flipped over and took a look
yeah,
at.
I'm definitely on a delay here. I'm sorry for that, guys.
Looks like prices actually kind of swallowed that report pretty well. I'm showing D's corn right now down 1 at 409. No beans down 2 at 1065. Wheat taking it on the chin. Chicago wheat right now looks like it's down about 16. So I know that I know we're a little bit delayed on there, and you're probably gonna see those numbers get a little bit better on your screen, Matt. But
Yeah, I'm really sorry about this. I thought I was on
that
live
is
earlier on.
that is absolutely no problem. That is absolutely no problem. We really like just to see the numbers and didn't expect any big changes. Like I said, inundated with numbers right now. To give you an idea, in our world, our attendees today are primary crop insurance agents. We got a lot of folks from AgriSompo, the company internally, that are joining us. We got a few farmers on here, and they're in the middle of reporting season. So a
Okay.
lot of folks are reporting acres by July 15th. So, when those numbers come in, again, we get a little bit better look, at these estimates to see how real they are. And, we'll probably see some changes maybe in the August report based on those, but it won't get anything until that time.
Right.
So probably not the hopes that we wanted, but at the same time, the news is certainly bearish. The numbers are big. Stocks, acres, no change. Yields, no change. I think all in all, the market's digested as well. I'd love to think that we're finding some solid footing on December corn. I think given this information, in most years, maybe we continue to sell off. We'll see what the day brings, and see if these speculators have an appetite to bring this lower. One thing that's kind of interesting is tremendous amount of old crop corn still unsold on the farm. And I know everybody likes some practical advice whenever we end these calls. And this is tough advice to give because farmers find themselves kind of their back against the wall. They like to have bins cleaned out by harvest. They also need money to pay down these operating lines that are, hovering around 7.5% to 8.5% in a lot of places in the country. And so they're going to take this corn to the market. And that's the kind of price action we've seen, Matt, where it's a grind lower. When
Right.
they see this grind lower, that's indicative of commercials selling into this market. It's farmers kind of giving up the ghost day by day, where they capitulate to this market, say that's enough. Now, can we see a rally from this point on? We absolutely can. Will it be modest in nature? Probably. What's it going to be led by? It's going to be led by spec buying, probably more than anything else. We do need some fundamental news in there. Again, holding on to maybe some of that July weather having an impact on corn pollination more than it usually does. We're going to have a lot of corn that pollinates in the first half of August. So we need that spark. If a farmer has to sell right now, I know this is out of their comfort zone a lot of times. December corn call options are priced reasonably right now. A couple of ticks out of the money get you a 420 or 430 strike. Those 430 corn call options coupled with a cash sale, they're going to run you about 11 and a half cents out there. I think that's a reasonable strategy. That gives you some length in the market until November 24th. Matt, one thing that you don't want to overstate this, but it certainly seems like our volatility patterns across the calendar year may be
Yeah.
changing a bit. June, July kind of been that highlight point for history tells us that's when to expect the volatility. With South America coming on so fast and so big the last few years, what kind of impacts do you think that's going to have on when prices can potentially rally across the calendar date?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on a really interesting point. So I'm just going to share. You'll actually see. So I've got these prices are now live. So I'm really sorry again about that. So yes, you saw corn. Corn's actually ticked up substantially up to 416 now on the report. That's just a couple of minutes after the report. Soybeans ticked up again from its lows on the day, and you saw wheat now just at 5 592. That's obviously on the Kansas contract there. But yeah, like to your point around volatility, there's always, certainly on the new crop, there's a really interesting set of patterns, particularly you see on soybeans, and you're going to see this chart just loading up in a second here. So yeah, I think quite a nice pattern here. Actually not just looking at volatility here, you're actually looking at the skew. And you'll see that number is a positive number. That's because we're looking at the $25 call versus the put. Again, here, this is on your prompt November. But yeah, as a state of the crop starts to become somewhat more like slightly more secure through the middle of July until end of like 4 weeks through that, so middle of August, you'll see this that risk premium, the risk being priced in on calls, starts to fall off, and this is a pretty consistent trend you see over the last 5 years here. It's a nice chart to keep aware of here. As I say, this year is somewhat different. It really didn't see that move. I think you had some pretty good conditions right across the Midwest, and that sort of fell off much earlier, really towards the end of June, compared to earlier years. You can do the same thing, of course, on
Or as well.
yeah, on corn as well. I'll just bring up Kansas, unless you have anything else something else you'd much rather see. But here we're just going to look at the money vol on the Kansas contract. Let me just make sure we've got the right numbers here. Here you'll see, yeah, Kansas just at the money vol, implied vol, sorry, is just what, 27. So yeah, pretty nice pattern, moving up but now falling off pretty considerably, as you can see there. If you wanted to look at the skew again, just as we did on the on soybeans, you can do that too. And again, if we just obviously put down on the puts here, you'll see again, sort of middle of the park, right? Nothing hugely exciting to talk about there. Exactly, hard to find a story on that one, but yeah, as you can see, relatively interesting. Something that you might want to look at, actually, moving slightly away from obviously from grains. You have seen some relatively strong moves across not across macro, but the broader commodity space, particularly across crude, as you've seen some relatively strong seasonal demand. You've seen Brent. This is really looking at one of the main global benchmarks for crude seems to have caught a bit of light here. You'll see crude's moved up slightly over the last couple of days. Again, somewhat range bound, but just taking that macro picture, crude's moved up slightly. You're definitely seeing some slightly better signals on the demand side there. Obviously, supply side on crude has been heavily controlled by the OPEC Plus alliance. So this is again something that might feed into that more bullish story that you're talking about for the broader grain space, as you a couple of minutes earlier, Brooks.
I think it's a really good point. And I don't want to get too deep in here, but we do have some listeners that really take hold of this, and so I don't want to skip it either. We think of corn in our own little world a lot of times, and Matt's brought a really good point here. When you throw corn into the commodity basket, it's relatively small. When we think about just some of the profits from some of the large energy companies versus the value of the entire corn crop, you kind of get a sense of how small corn is in the scheme of things. And that may seem bad, but when corn can go along for the ride with the energy sector, we certainly celebrate that. And I think that may be, I know this sounds crazy, that may be our biggest hope right now, even versus weather, when we're in July. So the other thing is if I am in equities, Matt, I read about this more of a trend of, rather than selling equity positions or maybe buying puts on owned stock that's out there, going in and hedging yourself with commodities. And I think that's kind of what you're getting into. That basket of commodities, while we focus on energy, maybe soybean meal more so than corn, where does corn fit into that? Is it just a small player in that basket of commodities?
Yeah, I mean that broader basket of commodities is obviously gets heavy. I mean, corn is not tiny, but if you consider the role of certainly of crude refined products and then the broader energy space thinking into gas, it's agri is obviously a lot smaller in terms of its representation within those commodity baskets, I think. But and actually, I mean, you're seeing that, you know, relatively something of a difficult story for ags. You're seeing similar across the broader commodity space, right? We pulled out that picture of Brent. It's been largely range bound all year, as you've had difficult. It's been very difficult to see much of a compelling story there. You know, globally, you've got continued concerns about the strength of China. That's always important when we think about the direction for commodities, given China is such an important demand point for the commodities trade. So yeah, I think it's difficult. It's hard to see much of a story at the moment.
Yeah. Well, Matt, we don't keep folks too long on here. In the last minute or so, any summary you want to add? Any advice you want to throw out there to our group?
I don't have any advice. I think that's the advice is much better coming from you. But I think hopefully the August report brings something more compelling in terms of numbers. Corn seems oddly strong, frankly, compared, like if you consider the numbers that actually came out that we saw 15 minutes ago now. So yeah, I mean, again, like maybe the sell-off the last couple of days have been too strong, but again, that reaction, particularly on corn, seems a little bit lofty.
Yeah, I'll take this reaction to this report any day of the week. When I saw in the last hour before the report, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, we may be heading even lower, but this is definitely a breath of fresh air given the news we got out there.
Yeah.
Matt, we appreciate you joining us. We'll have to do it again. And the invitation's out there. If you want to see the heartland of the U.S., you've got a lot of folks right here that would be happy to be your guide. So thanks so much.
Glad to get over there. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us this month. We have got a marketing meeting coming up. I believe that's on the 19th at 9 a.m. Central. You don't want to miss that. And I've got good news. Sterling will be back for that, assuming he doesn't put down roots in Europe. And you can listen to his expertise when it comes to the markets. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time around.